Hello everyone, welcome back to another Friday and another casual champion review where today, oh boy, I can already see it, this one's gonna stir up some pretty wacky comments. So before I delve in to the politics of Azir, I guess today, I do ask you fellas, as usual, we're here to have a discussion. We're here to talk about champions. We have differing opinions. People have very strong opinions of this character, and I've seen it in many other channels really discuss Azir, both in a positive and a negative light. So I'm here to give my 2 cents about how I feel about Azir today. Just please keep part of the discussion. Keep it civil, I ask you. We're all human beings here. I hope at least, but I'll try and keep things nice and cool. You know what else is nice and cool? The fan art section. Yes, look at it. Oh my bird. That's for the people who aren't in the Discord server or aren't on Twitter. Whenever there's fan art, I usually respond with like a comment or a funny image or something. But with Azir, I just replied with this clip. Bird! Every time. And it was great. I really love it. It's so funny. So Azir is going to be kind of weird to talk about lore-wise because I feel like he's one of those characters that most people already know his lore. Probably because he's such a central character to the Runeterran universe, but also because, this might be a bit of a hot take, but I firmly believe Shurima has the best characters and the best storyline in all of Runeterra. And that's mainly because every character is morally gray. There is no clear set villain, no clear set hero. Maybe Talia's probably the hero, I guess. But in ancient Shuriman terms, that's how it was. And it really makes you think about the logistics of the characters and their motivations. And I really like that. I think if Arcane ends after Season 2, the next show I'd want, League of Legends, the next League of Legends based show I would want is one based on Shurima and the rise and fall, and maybe a bit of the Dark and War, though maybe that's saved for a different thing. But for the people who don't know Azir's lore, it's pretty good. I like it a lot. So Azir was born into the royal family of Shurima some few thousand years ago, and he was the youngest of his siblings. He had many brothers, but because he was the youngest, he knew right then and there that he was too young. He was never the next heir to the throne, so he never had to worry about becoming emperor. And so he spent most of his time studying instead. He studied a lot in Nasus's library. I forget under the tutelage of Nasus or not. I know he trained fighting under Renekton, and they mention Nasus and Renekton a lot in Azir's story, but that's mostly because Azir was made back in like 2014, so at that moment we didn't know about the other ascended beings, or the Darken weren't explored at that moment yet. At that moment in time, Aatrox was still an alien from outer space. So he spends a lot of time in Nasus's library learning about the history of Shurima, and he comes across this slave boy who doesn't have a name because it's illegal for slaves to have names in Shurima. They both discover they have a shared passion for the history of Shurima and eventually become good friends, and even though it's against the law, Azir names the slave boy Zerath, which means something. I don't remember. I have the wiki open, but it probably means like cool guy or something. So Azir and Zerath become good friends and eventually start hanging out a bit together. And he brings him along on a lot of adventures and things. Well, adventures is in studying. But they go on a bit of a traveling trip. Azir, Zerath, Azir's father, his brothers, and Renekton. There's a bodyguard. And they go out separate during night to go map the stars, Azir and Zerath do, because they really like doing that. But unbeknownst to them, a bunch of assassins show up to kill the Emperor and his sons. Uh-oh. Well, I'm dead. All these assassins show up. But thankfully, Zerath is there to save Azir. Saves his life, and Azir is so grateful. It's like, oh, Zerath, dude, you're amazing. You're like my brother. Oh, I wish you were free. I wish you weren't a slave. Pigeon versus horse. This is just like National Geographic. So Azir runs over to his father to excitedly tell him that Zerath saved him, but finds that, yeah, his father's still alive. Renekton managed to save him, but all of his brothers are dead. Each and every one of him, which means that Azir is now the rightful heir to the throne. And Azir is, one, not prepared for this, but also his father is not exactly pleased. Azir tells his father that Xerath saved him and that they should reward the slave boy. It doesn't matter that a slave saved his son's life. He's still a slave and therefore not a person. Just not worth his time. Plus, like I said, Azir's father just didn't really like him, didn't really want him to be ruler, so he is desperate. He keeps doing the business with his wife to try and get a new heir, a new son, so Azir can't rule. But no matter what happened, Azir's mother could not bear a new child. And some people thought maybe she had been cursed, and in fact, I had the little passage here. So long as the queen remained barren, Azir's life was relatively safe. Some around the court believed a curse was at work, and a few even whispered the young heir's name in connection with this. Azir claimed innocence and even executed some who dared voice such accusations openly. So yeah, if Azir was accused of a curse or like not letting his mom have a new child, he fucking killed them. So we can already start to see his true nature begin to emerge. Eventually, his mom does bear a new child, and yet tragedy strikes. A big lightning storm or something kills her and the unborn child, and supposedly Azir's father, out of just sheer horror, ended his own life. Though when they went to find the body, all the guards were dead too, so, But now Azir is the only heir to Shurima, and it needs a leader. And he thinks, wow, what better time than now for me to become the leader? Maybe with all these events happening, it was me. I was destined to rule Shurima. None of this could have possibly happened altogether if I didn't have the divine right to rule this land. But he has an ulterior motive. He does want to free Xerath because he views Xerath as a brother. He wants him to be free, and he wants the slaves to be free because he does want what's best for the Shuriman people at the end of the day. Unfortunately, he can't really free the slaves because if he did, then there would be a lot of problems with the elites of Shurima, and they might even form a coup and remove him from power, which that's horrible. You can't I have to rule, Azir says. I have to be the ruler of Shurima. This region would be useless and forgotten without me. And Xerath eggs him on a bit, because I don't think Xerath knew that he was going to free the slaves, but he does, I think, have an inclination that he might be freed under Azir's rule. So he eggs on Azir that, if you want to really rule this land to the best you can, become the emperor of the world, you need to undergo ascension. And this is kind of unheard of because ascension is usually for people who are near the end of their lives. Like Nasus was dying. He was right. If he didn't undergo ascension, he would have died. But also because he had lived a long and prosperous life beforehand, he had served his empire well, and he was deemed worthy by the Sun Priests. Azir had, gone through such thing. He was still a young emperor. So who knows if he had actually gone through his ascension, would he burnt to a crisp? Regardless, his ego is out of control, and now he believes that he needs to ascend. It's the only way he can rule Shurima forever. And of course, anyone who disagrees with him will die. That's again. I have the exact passage right here. Azir would not be dissuaded from this rash course of action, for his arrogance had grown along with his empire, and he ordered them to comply on pain of death. So, if you didn't agree that Azir could ascend, you die. That's how he is. And the day of ascension comes, and he is up there about to ascend, and he announces, hey everyone, the slaves are free at last. Then he turns to Xerath and says, Xerath, my brother, you have a proper name now. You are Xerath, and you are my oath brother, and we will free the slaves together. And Xerath man's just flabbergasted to the point of speechlessness, because he was fully prepared to kill Azir that day and steal the power for himself, which he still does because he's been learning arcane magic, and it's very likely that he was the one who killed Azir's mom and the unborn child and potentially his father. So as Azir's going up to get ascended, Xerath Biden blasts him, and he dies and absorbs all the magic for himself. And the rest of the lore, I think everyone knows, yada yada. Xerath absorbs all the power, but it wasn't meant for him, so big explosion happens. Pretty much everyone in Shurima dies. And thousands of years later on, Azir's last remaining bloodline in Sivir gets blood spilled, blood falls in, awakens Xerath, revives him somehow. does a single selfless act and saves one person, therefore deemed of ascension worthiness, and he ascends, and now he wants to revive his empire again. But now we get on to the tricky part. I'm going to mention this before we talk about his design, because I did say at the beginning, a lot of people really like Azir. I think the thing that sticks with me most about Azir's character is, I think it was in a Dev Insights blog they were talking about. And they're talking about Azir and his moral compass. And they say, well, Azir is a dictator, but a kind one. That's not how dictators work. You cannot be a dictator without being a fucking awful person. That's how it works. The thing about Azir is that he does have good intentions for the people of Shurima. He wants them to prosper. He did eventually want to free the slaves when the time was right, but he couldn't do it immediately because that would be a power upset and then he would lose his power. But he is definitely not the most morally sound person. You know, oh, this village where Xerath was born in, and these people who are living here that are like, they exist 3,000 years ahead of when Xerath was even here. Yeah, I'm gonna murder this whole village because he was born here and he disrespected my name. Or like the Stoneweavers. Yeah, he'll just kill the Stoneweavers. He'll kill people who don't agree with him. Even before he ascended, that was his thing. People didn't agree with him, they died. That's how dictators work. That's by, yeah, you don't agree with my methods? No, sorry, I'm right, you're wrong. I'm the Empire of Shurima. I have the divine right to rule. Therefore, if you disagree with me, death to you. So he has good intentions to help the people of Shurima, but he is completely clouded by his own arrogance and his own belief that he is the one who should be ruler of the world. Now, this doesn't make him a bad character, because he's great. Again, like I said earlier, I love how morally gray Shurima is. It really makes you think about stuff like, is Azir the villain of Shurima, or is Xerath? Both of them have good intentions in some regard, but have been warped and have their own ideals. Even Nasus and Renekton, you know, Renekton was a great person. Renekton was a great person and then got corrupted by the power of Ascension and twisted and tormented by Xerath. Nasus is, you know, mostly seen as the neutral person, but if people get in his way, he withers them. Wither is not just a slow like it is in game. Like, Wither in lore is rapidly aging people. If you get withered, you get fucking Thanos snapped. So by no means is he a bad character. I think he's great. Again, I love how morally gray the characters of Shurima are. But he's not a good person. I think there's room for him to become a good person, though. I think it would be cool to have, like, maybe him relinquish his power even a little bit, like make him humbled a bit, like he was with Sivir. I'd love nothing more than a redemption arc for him, to see him become like a truly great leader of Shurima rather than a benevolent dictator. Is that gonna happen though? Probably not. He might have had that opportunity when Cassante came out, because Nazuma's whole thing is that they don't want to be under Azir's rule. Ah, shit. I wonder why. Let's also not mention for his character that his entire army is corpses. Sand soldiers are not beings made of sand. Those are the corpses of the soldiers of Shurima's past, reanimated to fight mindlessly at his side. They have no will of their own. He is literally puppeteering the dead. But yeah, that's politics of Azir out of the way. Great character. Not necessarily a good guy, but, you know, people like villains. Everyone loves their villains, you know. Everyone loves their Thanos. They love their Jafar. They love all these kinds of crazy, evil characters. And even more so characters that are morally questionable, that you can kind of see where they're coming from, at least a little bit. And Azir's like that for me. As for design, I mean, he's Ra or Horus. I can't remember. Maybe a mix of both. They're both the bird gods, though Ra is like, I think in later stages of Egyptian mythology, he was like the one true big god, the god of the sun, and I think that's more thematically appropriate for Azir. But I do like that he is very clearly, he's Ra or Horus, but he's not a direct ripoff like Nasus and Renekton are. With Nasus, he is just Anubis, especially pre-visual update, or Renekton is just Sobek. It's so painfully obvious, but Azir's got these unique things about him, you know, the helmet, the color difference, the big purple streamers. There's so much about Azir's design to love. I do find it kind of funny that he's shorter than the other Ascended. That could just because like a little jab at his ego that he's overcompensating for something, but also because his ascension was early, or I guess late. I love how his color scheme's all golds and purples, really emphasizing the royalty nature of him. I imagine purple, especially in a place like Shurima, is probably a very difficult color to come across. Unless magic can make dye, I don't know. I really like that he has a helmet kind of obscuring his face. It gives that sense of like, oh, I don't really need to show you my true identity because I'm above you. It alienates you a little bit, right? Because you don't get to see his true face, although his face probably just looks like how he does in Warring Kingdoms Azir. Which I should say for skins, I think I mentioned this ages ago, but I don't think any skin for Azir is ever going to match Warring Kingdoms. That skin is just, whew, absolute perfect fit for him. As for his gameplay, though, it's kind of hard to tell considering my subpar gameplay today and being ran down by a goddamn horse. But I do really like Azir's gameplay. I think it is so fun. The problem is that you have to work like 5 times harder than any other champion to make use of it. Like, he's like an AP 80 carry, but like, here's my zone where I can auto attack. If you're not in that zone, my auto attacks probably do about as much damage as throwing toothpicks at a car. Like, I think he's one of the few champions left in the game that is actually mechanically intensive. It's been very difficult to try and commentate over this game because I have to think about soldier placement and auto attacks and kiting and trying to do the shuffle combo, which I will say, I think the Shurima shuffle is one of the most fun and cool combos in all of League of Legends. It doesn't even really come close. Like, utilizing every single aspect of his kit to do one big flashy play for his team, I think it's so goddamn cool. I think learning the shuffle while playing the Season 4 Rewind, I think that's probably why Azir was my most played champion during that time, because learning the shuffle was so fun. Even if I lose every game I play on this champion, like, I'm probably gonna lose this one. But yeah, he's one of those characters that's kind of ruined by esports a bit, like Ryze, Kalista, all of them. He can't be good for the normal player like myself if the pros are good at him. Well, the game seems to be ending, so I guess I'll probably finish my closing thoughts here. Azir, great character, even if he's not morally sound. Great design. Gameplay is very fun, even if it's not... meta-wise is not really the best, but still very enjoyable character. Even if I lose all the time on him, like I just did again. I think what I'm 2 for 14 now, but I guess I'll see you fellas next time. Bard time next week. Okay, goodbye.